Hello, my name is Yvette, and I will be talking about the intersecting identities of disability, gender, and race. With disability can form ableism. Ableism is the favor to the able body. We're born 9 times out of 10 not disabled, which allows us and gives us the privilege to do anything that we need. Now, disability can be physical or mental, meaning your body could be disabled or a portion of your body disabled, or a mental disability. As an example, Alzheimer's or ADHD. Ableism is institutionalized, meaning it is taught one way, meaning if you're able-bodied is better, you are great, where if you're disabled, you are not great, you are low, which is not true. Thus, it teaches intolerance. It confines the disabled to a small working options and creates disableism. Disability is restricting. It can internalize, meaning this disabled person isolates themselves to small or low meanings, which makes them feel less than, which can lead to greater depressions or mentality. Restrictions are social, meaning the society reinforces it. As an example, transportation. If a person is physically disabled, they either have to be chauffeured or use a mechanical wheelchair. They cannot do things on their own. Even if they have a mental disability, that can also restrict them from transportation as well. Employment is restriction too. Depending on the severity of their physical or mental disability, can restrict what types of jobs they can have or if they can even have a job. Although we have seen that this is slowly changing, where if a person is not 100% disabled in certain areas, they are allowed to work as long as they go look for it. Certain companies are forced to allow their employment, and if they turn them away, it could cause a lot of problems for them. As we've seen, advocation is the greatest tool for any identity to be heard. It acts as a liberation, an organization created by those can help the company and the community to open their eyes about the ableism and the restrictions and to help them speak out and reinstitutionalize the change. As an example, doctors are more empathetic and sympathetic to those who are disabled and will adhere the care to those. As an example, a military veteran having PTSD, instead of being treated with medicine, can be given a dog as a life partner and is greater than the medicine that they would have been given. It also lowers the microaggression, meaning the mentality that a person holds when encountering a person that has a disability. They don't think lowly or have a stereotype reaction to them, which can reduce their prejudice. and their actions can change, where instead of mocking them, they can actually help them. Next topic is gender. Gender is greatly enforcing sexism, meaning, and it depends on the culture. Cultures have different sexisms. they can create different stereotypes, meaning a man can be strong, wear pants, get a great education, have a job and be a breadwinner in the house, and can work anywhere. Whereas a woman can be weak, wear dresses, and have an education of the house and of cutlery and children, and the life role is tending to the house, the children, and the husband, and that is their job. Whereas a transgender is stereotyped in a greatly different way. And depending on what they are identified as first, depends on how they are stereotyped. Sorry. But as we have seen in the last decade or two, that has greatly changed. Whereas both men and women can be seen as strong or weak. And the transgender is being recognized greatly and not being shut down. Gender can be hierarchical, meaning it has a class order. Predominantly, men are seen as higher and women lower. As I said before, that is changing slowly, where sometimes women can be higher and men can be lower, or they can be on the same level. Hierarchy is enforced through the society. And it has category restrictions. One of them can be heterosexism for the male. They are forced into a description where they have to be manly and well-groomed and be the protectors. And if a person is born a man but identifies as a woman, but the society does not allow that category to be mixed, it can create an identity crisis. What can they choose? What can they be? And the change is slow, though. But we have a cycle of change. This cycle of change happens after a person learns the cycle of the culture and the society, what they should and should not do. If the person likes that learning, well, then of course they would not choose to change it. Instead, they would enforce it and reteach it to their kin and those around them. However, if a person does not like what they are taught, then they can recognize the isms in their life, like disableism, ableism, sexism, and a few other that we will talk about later, and can change their internal image and advocate and voice those changes, as we have seen in the LGBTQ community. Before, there was no such thing. Now there is, and they are changing the world. Race. Race is too hierarchical. It has a classification of ranks. The class separation is between middle, upper, and lower class. Predominantly, whites inhabit this class, as 88% are white, 5% are black, 7% are Asian, and 4% are Hispanic. Race can cause pervasivism. It's like a subconscious racism and can be seen as a prejudice, be stereotyped, and it is predominantly taught, which is why it is a subconscious racism. The person may or may not know that they're racist. It can also be an internalized racism and can create a passive segregation, and in turn make the person racist against themselves. As you've seen, I've put a red arrow here for the superior race and racism, because if a person sees their race as superior, well then that means they're racist because they think every other race is inferior. Race can be oppressive. It is a social oppression, meaning that it's not just one person that can enforce the suppression, it can be the whole community. It can be the one or more races. And Caucasians are predominantly not oppressed, as history would show it. Oppression is institutionalized, as we have seen from the Mexicans or the Hispanics that first came to America, and the Japanese and Chinese, and now the Muslims. They are, at one time or another, or continuously, oppressed through the institutions that enforced by society, and can affect the jobs and the school systems and the public interactions. If you've ever seen a Muslim who invokes their full culture of clothing, you tend to have a different reaction, whereas if you were to see a person who was of a similar race, you would not have a very dramatic reaction. And the school system teaches this oppression as well, as the white are always revered as the superior race, and every other race may or may not be shown as inferior or superior. Liberation is the greatest key to all these isms, as I have repeatedly shown on purpose. It is a recognition of what is around you, in this case racism, and as we've seen the other isms. The person has to choose to either enforce the traditional lifestyles or to advocate and voice and stand for their rights and those around them, to change society and their institutions. This is the greatest key to all of the identities that I have mapped out here. And I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.